Hello, I'm Stéphane Bégodeau, Sirius Web Architect at OBO. Today I will show you all the brand new capabilities of Sirius Web in a live demo session. First of all, let me give you some context and let's see what the Sirius Web project is. Sirius Web is a ready-to-use modeling framework to define and render graphical applications in the web. It provides an open-source model server with various components that you can reuse. On top of that, it comes with an open source application offering tons of features such as diagrams, properties, forms. And finally, it relies on regular web technologies like Spring Boot, GraphQL, React, Apollo, Xstate, and Material UI, to name a couple of them. Now, let's have a look at Sirius Web in action. First, we have the project browser. This is where you can see all the projects available on your server and create new ones very quickly. Here we'll create a modeler. In this project, I can start by creating an empty model, and inside of it, I want to define my domain, all the concepts that I want to manipulate inside of this demo. For that, I can use the contextual action available in the Explorer on the left of the workbench, which allow me to perform CRUD operations on all the model elements. So let's create a new domain. On the right, I have the properties of the currently selected element. Here I can select its name and its URI, which will be Pokemon domain. Now, with the Explorer on the left and the properties on the right, I can create everything inside of my project, but it's not as efficient as using a proper representation. So let's switch to the domain diagram. My domain diagram is currently blank, so I'll start creating a couple of entities. By clicking inside of the diagram, I have access to the contextual palette, which gives me all the action that I can perform at the location where I've clicked. Here, I can only create entities for now. By double-clicking on an entity, I can edit its label very easily. So let's name it root. I'll create another entity named trainer. You know what? I don't have to edit this diagram all by myself. I can invite a friend to edit it with me. So let's do that right now. I'll use the admin account, and both users will start to edit the domain at the same time. So here I'll create a Pokemon concept, then I'll create the species and the entity named. I'll make this one abstract. You can see that it has changed its appearance. Using the contextual palette, I can click on an element and you can see that I have access to additional actions. Here I can create a text-based attribute for my entity. I can rename it, and I can also move all my elements and you can see them moved in real time for the other users. I can add a couple of properties to species, so I need the height of the Pokemon. I also need its weight. I have its base experience, and finally its number of moves. On the Pokemon, I can add its level. Now I can create relations between my concept. Trainers as for supertype, the entity named, but species too. I can edit that using the properties on the right here. You can see that it creates a second edge. Let's move it a little. You can see the manual layout in action. I can create a relation between trainers and Pokemons. This relation will not be a containment one, but a Pokemon can definitely catch, a trainer can definitely catch multiple Pokemons. I can also add a couple of containment relations, for example, between species and Pokemon. So here, and between my root concept and trainer, since I can have multiple trainers, and sorry, I clicked just outside, between root and species. Okay, I'll switch back to full screen. It will be easier to see for the rest of the demo. I can also ask for the automatic layout if I want to have something a bit more beautiful. Right here, very easy to do. I can also zoom on my diagram, and you can see that it's very sharp thanks to the use of SVG and CSS. Now I have my domain that I can visualize in the Explorer too, and I can edit any of its properties on the right very easily. If I want, I can go and create a Pokédex project and start creating some of my concept. So here I can create the root. Inside of the root I can create trainers, for example Ash. Sorry, I can also create an additional trainer, for example Misty, and so on. Now it's not very efficient. I would really like to have a diagram to edit my concept. So let's get back to my modeler and we will create our first representation. So let's create a diagram. First, I'll create a second model, and inside of it, I will create my view. I'll display the Pokemon domain here so we can understand the concept that we want to manipulate in this view. So in the view, I can create a diagram. That diagram will be named Pokédex, and it will work on the domain time root, that one. The title expression will be Pokédex. That's fairly easy, and we will use the auto layout. Now, inside of my diagram, I want to use a node and start displaying my trainers. So I will have two trainers right now, and I will use the relation trainers between root and the entity trainer. As for the label, we will use the name of the trainer. I can select the style of the trainer, so we will have a black label and the shape will be the player. Now, if we go back to our Pokédex, we should be able to see this diagram in action. So on the concept root, I can create this Pokédex representation. And now my two trainers are visible. I also have access to default tools to create additional trainers, to rename them, and to also delete them. I did not have to create any tool description for that inside of my diagram definition. Now we can see that both Ash and Misty have the same appearance. Let's change that with a conditional style. So I can go back in my diagram description, and underneath my node description, I can create a conditional style, which will use the other shape named player1, and the condition will be if the name is equal to Misty. If I refresh my diagram, you can see that it works. So that's nice, but what if I create a new trainer and I name the trainer Alice? I don't have the female trainer here because it's not equal to Misty. So let's replace this condition with a custom Java service that I've provided to the server before. So on the server, I have this probable gender service, which we'll call a remote HTTP API to determine if a name is probably male or female. Here, I can change the expression to use probable gender of self.name, and if we have a female, then it will switch to this other appearance. So now if I refresh my diagram, you can see that Alice has the proper appearance. Now let's add additional features to our diagram. Okay, so let's move back to the description of the diagram, but this time I won't go back to the modeler project, but to the studio instead. In this project, I've created all the concept of the demo beforehand with an advanced version of the diagram description. So we can still see the Pokemon domain with all the concept that I've created from scratch for this demo, but we also have a more complete version of the diagram Pokédex. So we still have the node description trainer with the conditional style using our Java service probable gender. But now we have another node description that I just won't create from scratch. It has a rectangle style, and inside we will have two node description, one for the Pokemon with a conditional style depending on the name, and another one for the species with all the detail of the species: height, weight, base experience, move, and so on. Finally, we have an edge from the trainer to the Pokemon, and this edge will be black, the default style. So let's see this more complete version of the diagram in action. So here I'll create one from scratch with the Pokédex representation. And inside, I start creating a trainer. Let's name it Hash. Another trainer, Misty. Then we can create this time a species. So it will be Pikachu. And inside we have two Pokemon. So here's one, here's another one, and the first Pikachu will be level 5, and the second one will be level 12. Finally, Ash will have captured that Pokemon, and Misty that other one. I did not have to define any tool in my diagram description. So if we go back in the diagram description here, you can see that I don't have any tool right here, but I still have the default behavior. I can create element, I can rename them, no problem. But I can override this default behavior using custom expression or Java services. For example, here, let's create a new tool to rename a species. So here we'll give it a name, and then we will give it a behavior. So here we'll use change context, but we can have another behavior if we want. We will also use a Java service here. This Java service will be named rename Pokemon, and that's the one here. It will use a Pokemon API, a remote HTTP API, to find out the height, the weight, the number of moves of the Pokemon, thanks to its name. So now, if I go back in my diagram, and if I select the species Pikachu and change it to Snorlax, for example, you can see that all the stats have been updated thanks to my Java service and this remote HTTP API. So I have a default behavior. I don't have to create absolutely everything from scratch, but I can customize anything from the default behavior. And just like before, this diagram too can be edited collaboratively. So I can use the admin account and connect to the same project. You can see that John Doe is currently alone on the diagram, but if I open it with the admin, I can start adding new Pokemon, for example, Snorlax level 0, and so on. So you don't have anything to do, everything is synchronized, and you can start working with your colleagues from the day one. Speaking of working with other individuals, we have created all that without leaving our web browser, but everything that we have created, from the domain to the definition of the diagram, is just regular EMF model. You can download all of them quite easily right here, and we can have a look at them to see that you can reuse them in a regular modeling tool if you want. Here you have the model with Ash and Misty and our Snorlax. We have here the definition of our diagram description with all the conditional styles. And right here we have the definition of our domain with all our entities, attributes, and relations. If you want to use those models, those EMF models, with another modeling tool, you can import them and do anything you want with them. If you have an existing Sirius Desktop based modeler, you can also bring it very easily inside of Sirius Web. It allows you to reuse existing components, reduce your effort, and mostly preserve your investment. So for that, we will use an existing modeler named Flow Designer. You can find the source on GitHub, and we will just have to import it using Maven in open.xml. So we will reuse the jar of the meta model where the eCore file is located, the edit part generated by eCore, and the ODesign file. And then inside of the configuration, we can create a Sirius configuration. You just need to give us the path of the ODesign. We will load it, convert your existing Sirius Desktop diagrams into Sirius Web diagrams. We will register Java services, things like that. And you need an EMF configuration with the adapter factory and the e-package for your meta model. You can have multiple adapter factories and e-packages. That's not an issue. Once you've done all that, you can go back to your web browser, open Sirius Web once again, and start creating a project with your existing concept. Here we have created sample models to get started quite easily. You can see that in the Explorer, I still have access to my icons. I can edit the properties of my element with the properties on the right, and I can use existing representation from Sirius Desktop inside of my web browser. I have access to the conditional styles. I can use my tools to create elements, to create edges. I have access to the direct edit of the label. So for example, here you can use radar. We have, as you can see, the conditional style here. We don't support everything from Sirius Desktop. We don't support tables or unsynchronized diagrams for the moment, We are working on some of those features, but if you have some specific needs, don't hesitate to contact us to tell us in which direction you would like to see the project move. We are not stuck on what exists on Sirius Desktop. We can also provide additional features to your existing modelers. So here, of course, you would have access to the automatic layout, but we can also bring additional representations that are only available on OBO Cloud Platform, for example. So here we have a set of D3 based representation with, for example, the force directed tree, which gives you a nice overview of the structure of your model. So here you have the small force directed tree and you can play with it. We also have the tree map. Like that. And finally, we have the circle packing. All those three representation can be used to have a different view on the structure of your data. You can zoom in, you can zoom out quite easily. Okay, now let's go back to the slide. So in this demo, I gave you the opportunity to see your server up and running. It takes care of loading and retrieving the model instances for you. It allows you to modify existing model elements. It also comes with a subscription system to listen for changes. Thanks to that, it will synchronize everything for you across the different representation, allowing you to work collaboratively. It is built with generic API for data structure, but we provide a default implementation to manipulate EMF models. You could use something else if you want. The server is collaborative by default, and it allows simultaneous changes while your model will stay semantically correct. Multiple users can work on the same project, even using different representations. On the other side, the Sirius Web application comes with the project browser to manipulate the projects of the server. You also have access to a project editor with its workbench composed of an explorer, the properties of the selected element, and various representation editors. Everything needed to provide CRUD operations for your model. For that, our Sirius Web application provides diagrams with nodes, containers, edges, ports, and we recently added lists. Everything is using SVG and CSS, which allows a great zooming capability. The edition is smooth thanks to the direct edit and the contextual palette. And just like in Eclipse Sirius, conditional styles are supported to make your diagram react when your data change. The layout can be automatic or manual. If you want to use a manual layout, you can move elements, resize them as you want. You can also ask for the automatic layout at any time. All the layout information are persisted, so your diagram will stay the same. You also have the ability to contribute custom Java services to provide advanced behavior. And you can bring your existing Sirius Desktop modeler to the web. A migration path exists to reuse your existing component. This will reduce your effort and preserve your investment. Now, if you want to get your hand on all those awesome features, and if you want to try them with your use case starting today, you have two options. You can choose between running your own instances from the Sirius Web source code, which is available on GitHub, or use our hosted demo. You just have to register and we'll send you an invitation. Some of the features that we have shown today are not available on the hosted demo because they are still in beta, such as the meta modelization, the ability to create your domain and your view from the web browser. But you can contact us if you want to try those features, and they will be delivered this autumn. Thank you for attending this presentation. If you have any question, do not hesitate. Thank you.
Well, we have a lot of questions.
I see.
As expected. So first question, will it be possible to integrate editors created using Sirius Web into other browser-based applications such as Taya?
Yes, definitely. We did a blog post on the official OBO blog to showcase an integration inside of VS Code. And we also have submitted a talk for EclipseCon Europe later this year for integration in other applications such as Taya.
Okay, we have a fan of the tool palette, and not only for the creation of elements. Does Sirius Web also support the definition of the tool palette?
Yeah.
Okay, short and concise answer. Can I create properties that have an enumerated type?
Right now, using the domain, no.
Okay, but is it planned?
Yeah, we will consider things like that, of course.
Can I create multiple domain diagrams and drag one entity on multiple diagrams?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but you can create one domain and have several diagrams and have users manipulate the same entity and view that entity thanks to the multiple diagrams. So you would have one entity, but your end user would be able to see various aspects of that entity. Yes, that's possible.
Can I add entities?
Right now, no, you can't hide anything in the diagram.
Next one, is the collaborative editing feature open source?
Yes, you can use Sirius Web collaboratively. We just offer additional features on top of that using in our proprietary version of the Cloud Platform, such as the ability to see who is working at the same time as you do on a diagram or on the properties of the object that you have selected, things like that. But you can work with others using the open source version.
Okay, thanks. And I see that Melanie is adding something on your roadmap relative to the previous question. Can we connect the virtual model to the real world in case of we are using sensor?
That would be possible. We had a prototype of something like that. You could use our webbook to subscribe, or webbook or subscription or GraphQL subscription API to subscribe to our changes and synchronize remote service with the data from Sirius Web. That's definitely possible, but it requires some work.
Does Sirius Web make use of GLSP?
No.
Thanks for your time, Stefan, and it was a really great demo.
Thank you.